Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. We're going to talk about my May reads. It is currently the 11th of May, and I'm going to talk about the books I have finished so far this month, mostly because I need to get 2 of them back to the library, and I need to purge the bad reads from my system. So, I'm going to save the good for the end of this update, and we're going to talk about the bad first. First up, let's do the least of the bad. We'll do the worst of the bad first. How about that? That would be The Martian by Andy Weir. This was a buddy read with the wonderful Amanda and Taylor. And if it wasn't for the buddy read, I would have DNF'd this book. There are so many problems with this book. I am going to give it its own dedicated review, and then I'm donating it to the library because I'm very thankful I read Project Hail Mary first, because if I had read The Martian first, I never would have picked up Project Hail Mary. I will never read another Andy Weir book unless I can get it from the library, and even then, I will think very long and hard about it. Briefly, if I ever updated on Goodreads, this would be getting a 1. In reality, it's like a quarter to maybe a half star. A brief highlight of everything that is wrong with this book. The protagonist is made of tissue paper. At one point, he says something along the lines of "kill Mark," and Mark is capitalized as in a first name. And Amanda sends a chat. She's like, "Who's Mark? What does kill Mark mean?" I'm like, "Mark is the protagonist's name." She's like, "What?" Yeah. He has no substance whatsoever. I read hard science fiction on, all the time. Except it is never the standalone concept in a book. And this horrible novel, I never want to hear another word about poop and potatoes in the same sentence. I don't care about, he's the best of everything. He is an absolute Mary Sue character. There are very big plot holes. You never know who he is as a person. And by the end of the book, we were all skimming. I could not wait for this to be over. And unlike Taylor, who is obviously a much more generous soul than I didn't care if he escaped the planet. I just wanted it to be over. I would have been happy had the man died. And then there's the ending, which is, what? Just, what? By the time this review comes out, it is undoubtedly true that my unpopular opinion review for this book is already out. So when I publish this, I will link that in the description box. But yeah, I am very confused about everybody who thinks this is a fantastic novel. Pickles, that is unnecessary. And I'm not trying to diss on you if this is like one of your favorite books of all times, but I do not understand. I do not understand. So that is The Martian. I will only talk about this one other time, and then I'm never thinking about it again. Okay, that brings us to the next bad book, but it was significantly better. And the significantly better bad book was Southern by Design by Grace Helena Walls. This is a 2. If I'm being incredibly generous, it's a 2.5. So, The book has a prologue. It opens up. You're really invested to begin with. The writing is absolutely fine. I have no problems with the writing style. The author's ability to invest a reader in the story or the characters. Everybody is a flushed out character in and of their own right. And yet, the book fails. For me. Failure point number 1. At the time this book takes place, our protagonist is still married and in the process of separating from her husband. Okay, that's part of, what happens in life. And then she gets in a relationship with her first love and is not yet divorced. So she's cheating. If they had set the book a year later, everything that took place in this book could have occurred. That is not going to be allowed. Exactly the same, except there wouldn't have been the cheating trope. However subtle it was, it wouldn't have been there, and I would have rated this book much higher. But the cheating trope, I cannot stand. Especially since our characters are in their mid-30s, they should know better. Just saying. Our protagonist, whose name is Magnolia, so Magnolia, Mac, is named after her mother. She has very obvious and somewhat understandable mommy issues. Her mother is also named Magnolia. And Magnolia, the mother, is the quintessential overbearing Southern society matron who wants to control every aspect of their child's life. Mac is the people-pleasing, I don't know how to live for myself daughter who at 34, 35 has yet to break free of mama entirely, and that dynamic continues throughout the entire book, and it, while somewhat realistic, is also incredibly annoying. And 300 plus pages of that incredibly annoying trope and stereotype got on my nerves, particularly because there was no hint of personal growth or reconciliation until the last 10% of the novel. And Mac just continually shoved her emotions down and, dealt with her narcissistic mother in a manner she knew that would work. And while relatable, and, a lot of people do that, it is not, there could have been a redemption story woven together before the last 10%. And then the book just neatly wraps up. Last 15, 10%, everything that happened in the previous portion of the book just kind of magically comes together. Magnolia changes. Mac now understands her mother. All of the things that were left unresolved are suddenly resolved. It's just like, you spent all this time creating characters. Why did you cop out? So she either ran up against word count, page count, something, because the ending was rushed. It was sudden and not a fan. Will I pick something else up by her? I will. It is a purely secular book. It had mild language in it, but it wasn't anything. There was nothing truly offensive or agenda pushing in this book. it just sat the wrong way. The writing is great. I will pick up another book by her. But I'm not. She failed to hit it out of the park like Christy Woodson Harvey did on the first book I picked up by her. So, every author is different, and that is great. But the ending and the narcissistic mother and the cheating and the overly convenient ending just all got on my nerves. So I'll be generous and say 2.5. Okay, now for the very good books I have read so far this month. First up would be A Daughter's Daughter by Mary Westmacott, aka Agatha Christie. This is categorized as a romance, which I think is a very giant misnomer. It's much more historical fiction at this point, and it is a very good juxtaposition to Southern by Design. And this is the first book I have ever read by Mary Westmacott. I will read the rest of them. It's not very long, and it packs a punch, just like a huge punch. So we have a mother and daughter, and I read this the 1st of May, and I cannot remember anything all of a sudden. Why is that? I can't remember the names. I will put the mother's name and the daughter's name here. So it is set immediately following World War II. It goes through about the mid-50s or so. And the mother becomes a widow, and her teenage daughter goes off to Europe for a couple of weeks. And in those couple of weeks, her mom meets up with her first love from her childhood. Again, second chance romance. They very quickly realize that they still love each other. They were meant to be. And they decide to get married. They have their banns announced in church. They're on the path, right? Through a mix-up, the letter gets lost, doesn't get mailed to her daughter while she's on vacation, so she's prepared for the news when she comes home. And needless to say, at 16, 17, she is still the height of a selfish teenage child who does not believe her mother truly loves this man or that this man is worth it. She does everything in her power to break up her parents or break up her mother and her fiance. And it works. And you see it coming. Mom cannot tell her daughter no, and she cannot stand up for the man she loves, and she kind of just lets the world happen to her, right? And you see it coming from a mile away, and it's very sad, and the daughter is very pleased with herself when this happens. Like, she couldn't be happier. And you watch their relationship change over the next 10, 15 years, not even that long, 5 to 10 years. Mom suddenly becomes very hip. So it's probably the mid-50s. So post-World War II, mid-50s, probably early 60s. And she cuts her hair. She's going out. She's this much more social human being than she was as the book opened up. Like, she's dating and partying and all the things. And it's not described in any kind of detail, right? The daughter eventually marries a man of wealth because the man she's truly in love with, she doesn't think can hold down a job, make anything happen. He isn't going to be able to keep her in the style to which she is accustomed. And the very rich man can. So she marries the very rich man. Mom knows it's a mistake, does nothing to stop it. And you see it's very much a push-pull dynamic between mother and daughter at this point. And they're barely talking. In her marriage, let's just say it's less than happy. She's promiscuous. Her husband is promiscuous. She's doing drugs. And then suddenly, the man she overthrew, because, he wasn't going to amount to anything, comes back to England and says he still loves her and he wants to take her away from the bad man. And gets her help, and there's reconciliation. This is just a beautiful mother-daughter novel that does not have a word to spare. It is meaningful. There's no skimming needed because it's just these short but impactful chapters that move the narrative along. And by the end of it, we have mother-daughter reconciliation. We have character growth from everybody across the board. And every character in that novel is in a much better place than they were during the novel. And it was just a fantastic read. So I'm going to continue reading the Mary Westmacott books. And I've only ever seen them on Kindle. So if you see one out in the wild, you are a very lucky soul. Okay. And for now, this is my favorite book of the month so far. It's my first by this author, and that is The Story of Arthur Trulove by Elizabeth Berg. This is the first in the Mason Street series. It's a trilogy. It takes place in Missouri. It is a purely secular novel, and I need to read her backlist because I fell in love with her writing in this book. And for a book that is under 225 pages, the library edition of this book is 218 pages. Yep, 218 pages. I loved every moment in this book. So as the story opens up, Arthur, who is our protagonist in this book, is on the way to his lunch date with his wife at the cemetery. She's died 6 months previously, and he goes to have lunch with her every day. He takes the bus to and from the cemetery. He's 86 and doesn't quite know what to do with himself without his beloved Nola. And you see him talking to his wife. You see him imagining the lives of the other people in the cemetery itself. And then you meet the rebellious 15-year-old named Maddie. I'm sorry, she's 18. She's in her senior year of high school. She is, best description of her is a goth child. She is a lost soul. Her mother died when she was a newborn infant. Her dad is so devastated by her mother's death that he was, in essence, an absentee parent. And one day she meets Arthur, and the story goes from there. And eventually the neighbor across the street from Arthur gets folded into the story. And the folding in of Lucille is perfection for this story. I can't share too much because it would just be spoiler central. But this is a non-romance love story. It is all about family relationships And it is a pro-life book, and it is an amazing read. Cannot wait to read the next one. I'm probably picking up from the library when I return this one this week. It was just it was so satisfying. We all know I love a good long book because I need character development. And when you can develop a character, or not a character, every character in 218 pages, so much that they all but leap off the page, you are masterful. And I loved every minute of this book. It was fantastic. Sure, there's a little swearing. Sure, we have an 18-year-old who makes some very silly decisions, but the friendship and the building of a life that occurs in this book, cannot recommend it enough. It was just fantastic. Okay, so as of this morning, that is all I've read today, or so far this month. We shall see what I get up to the rest of the month. Okay, I finished a couple of books. I finished a novella. I don't know that I'm going to finish anything else for the month, but there's 3 or 4 days left in the month, so I'm not going to end this video yet. However, let's talk about the 2 books I have finished. They are also in the Arthur True Love series. They are books 2 and 3, which finish the series. So book 2 is Night of Miracles, and book 3 is The Confession Club. I am firmly in the Elizabeth Berg fan club. I need to read them all. I absolutely love this series. As you know, the prequel novel is on my list for June. It's very likely I will probably pick that up here one day and read it. These are taking me less than a day to read. They are all under 250 or 270 pages as a library book. And the print isn't tiny. And once you start, you can't finish. You can't stop reading. So I can't talk about them in great detail because it will give away plot lines. I will tell you that there is a time gap between books 1 and 2 and then books 2 and 3. Characters you meet in one book are continued into the second and then continued into the third. And it just tells this beautifully wonderful, amazing story of a small town in Missouri named Mason. And it is really just a depiction of small town America. And if you watched my book tea with Tammy video, the 27th or 28th of May, I talk about Anne's video on books with a strong sense of place. And there is definitely a strong sense of place in these books. The town of Mason, Missouri comes alive, and the people who live in Mason and their sense of community, and just it is an amazing trilogy. Cannot wait to read the prequel. I highly recommend this series. Chances are very high your library has it. None of them will take you very long to read. All I will say is have a box of tissue or a couple of dry hankies next to you, because they're lovely. They're absolutely lovely examples of great character work and characters you will remember and that will stick with you for many years to come. And For a book that's under 300, a series where every book is under 300 pages, that says a lot about the quality of writing and the craftsmanship to make characters that memorable in so few pages. So, go read Elizabeth Berg. Okay, now for the novella. I'm not going to talk about the novella in detail. I will link my Substack article in the description box where I discuss it in great detail. I was approached by the author to read it after, making sure he understood that I'm not going to like it just because, he asked me to read it. He said he understood that. I agreed too. It was, under 90 pages, and I have a lot of thoughts, and on my Substack, it wasn't an easy article to read. Right. I will just leave it at that. So, as of this filming, I am currently reading Dragon's Teeth by Michael Crichton. I not that into it yet. It's a very different kind of Michael Crichton book for me. I'm probably going to start the Odyssey and read the intro. And then, okay, let's just be honest. I'm going to pick up the Elizabeth Berg book. I need to know. I need to know. So, I'll tell you how it went when I see you back here for the next set of clips. Okay, this is the last wrap-up video for the month of May. It is currently the 3rd of June, and I have finished a book, and I have DNF'd a book on my June pile of possibilities. So let's talk about the DNF first. That would be Dragon Teeth by Michael Crichton. It was published posthumously, and I read 100 pages, maybe slightly less than 100 pages, and it was less than 100 pages. I hated it. Don't know how else to say it. I couldn't. The way it's written is as if it is a nonfiction book. There's very little character work. There's very little descriptive detail. And yet, I know this is fiction. I keep looking it up. It's fiction. Or I kept looking it up. And I was having trouble distinguishing fact from fiction. It was so frustrating. There is an absence of dialogue. There is an absence of character work. It is all very dry and academic in tone and nature, and you could see where the possibilities for a story were in the first 90 pages or whatever I read, but they just weren't there. It was just missing. So I DNF'd it. I have other Westerns I can read. It wasn't worth being frustrated. And I know my opinion is in the minority for this, but this was just incredibly subpar for me. Okay, and the last book I read, I finished this on the 31st of May. That is Earth, the Right Place for Love by Elizabeth Berg. This is the prequel novel of the Mason, Missouri series, aka the True Love series. And this tells the story of Arthur and Nolan. As you know, I really loved Arthur True Love. I really enjoyed the second book, and I enjoyed the third book. I didn't hate this book, But this wasn't the first book in its emotional depth. However, this tells the story of Arthur as a 16-year-old admitting he's in love with Nola, and they're still in high school in Missouri, and he is the nerdy, not quite nerdy, not quite a jock, just that awkward teenager phase, and Nola is on the cusp of being one of the cool kids, but realizing that she doesn't really like herself when she's with the cool kids. The story is told completely from Arthur's perspective. And there are moments in this book where you see old Arthur. You see how he begins, and you remember why you fell in love with, old Arthur. And then there's just the usual (1950s) teenage angst in here. It was a completely enjoyable story. I loved it. Had I not read everything else first, I would have loved this book. Except, you know me by now. Characters were a little young for my taste, which is fine. This was what I, expected. It just... Until you read the series, you're not going to truly understand this. It lacked the old man charm. And I wanted the old man charm. I wanted who Arthur was in that first book. I missed that Arthur, for lack of a better phrase. However, I do love this cover, and it has meaning for the story, which I love the fact that it wasn't just a random pretty cover. I will continue to read books by her. So it was enjoyable. It's one of those books where you can't talk about it a lot because it spoils the series. No, nobody needs to hear you. You can be in a video next week if I film next week, okay? And it is absolutely worth watching or reading, but it didn't grab my heart like the first book in the series did. First book in the series is an emotional, joyous, grab hankies read that just I loved. So there you go. May was overall a very good month of reading for me. Unexpected surprises, unexpected joys. Never expected to finish an entire series. Sure, there were some DNFs, but that's okay. A month without DNFs would be so unlike me. Let's just face it. And I am very much looking forward to June. So, how did your reading month go? Let me know in the comments down below, especially if you've read any of these or you have another Elizabeth Berg to recommend to me. I'm here for it. What should I read next? Like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.